The galaxy was never quiet. Every corner of space hummed with signals, messages, and broadcasts. Species shouted their existence into the void, desperate to be heard, desperate to prove they mattered. The Galactic Council had over 12,000 civilizations, and every single one of them talked. They talked about trade, about war, about philosophy, about nothing at all. The universe was loud, and everyone assumed that was simply how things worked. Then the scouts found Earth. Commander stood on the bridge of her survey vessel, staring at the blue planet rotating slowly on the main screen. She had served the Council for 40 years. She had discovered 17 new species. She had seen wonders that would make poets weep, but she had never seen anything like this. "Run the scan again," she ordered. Her communications officer, a young male named, pressed several buttons on his console. The machine hummed. Data streamed across his screen. He looked at the results, then looked again, then turned to face his commander with confusion written across his face. "The results are the same," he said. "No outgoing signals, no broadcasts, no attempts at communication whatsoever." Walked closer to the screen. The planet was beautiful. Swirling white clouds covered vast blue oceans. Green and brown landmasses stretched across its surface. City lights glittered on the night side, proving without doubt that intelligent life existed there. Millions of lights, billions of beings, an entire civilization humming with activity. And yet silence. "That is impossible," said quietly. "A species this advanced must communicate. They must broadcast something." Shook his head. "They communicate with each other. We are picking up internal signals, radio waves bouncing between their cities, data moving through cables beneath their oceans. They talk constantly among themselves. But outward, into space," he paused. "Nothing, not a single deliberate attempt to reach the stars." Felt a strange chill run down her spine. In all her years of service, she had never encountered a silent world. Every species, no matter how primitive or advanced, eventually pointed their signals at the sky and screamed into the darkness. It was instinct. It was need. It was the desperate hope that someone out there would answer. But these beings, these humans as they called themselves, had built massive cities, launched satellites into orbit, even placed machines on their neighboring planets. They had the technology to speak to the universe. They simply chose not to. "Perhaps they are afraid," suggested. "Afraid of what?" "Of being heard." Considered this. Fear was common among young species. Many civilizations went through a period of hiding, worried that something dangerous might find them. But those civilizations usually grew past their fear within a few generations. They became curious. They became bold. They reached out. Humanity had clearly reached the technological threshold centuries ago. They were not a young species anymore. So why did they remain silent? "Prepare a landing party," decided. "We will make contact directly." The shuttle descended through clouds that tasted like water and chemicals. Watched through the window as the human city grew larger beneath them. Towers of glass and steel rose toward the sky. Vehicles moved along organized paths. Humans walked on sidewalks, small and fragile-looking, completely unaware that visitors from the stars were about to change their world forever. Or so assumed. The shuttle landed in an open area near the center of the city. Expected panic. She expected screaming, running, perhaps even primitive weapons pointed at her ship. First contact was always chaotic. Species rarely handled the revelation of alien life with grace. But as the shuttle doors opened and stepped onto human soil for the first time, she found something she did not expect at all. A crowd had gathered, yes. Hundreds of humans stood in neat rows watching the shuttle with calm eyes. No one screamed. No one ran. They simply watched as if they had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. A woman stepped forward from the crowd. She was older, with gray hair and lines on her face that spoke of many years and many thoughts. She wore simple clothes and carried no weapons. She stopped a few meters from and bowed her head slightly in greeting. "Welcome to Earth," she said. Her voice was steady and warm. "My name is, we have been expecting you." Felt her translator process the words, converting the human language into something she could understand. But even with perfect translation, the meaning confused her. "You were expecting us?" she asked. Smiled. It was a sad smile, the kind that carried weight behind it. "We have been watching the stars for a very long time, Commander. We saw your ships pass through our solar system decades ago. We tracked your probes as they scanned our planet. We knew you would come eventually." "Then why did you not respond? Why did you not send signals? The Council has been searching for new species to contact. If you had simply spoken, we would have found you sooner." Looked at with eyes that seemed suddenly very old. "We did speak once," she said quietly. "A long time ago, before your council existed, we sent messages into the void. We called out with hope in our hearts, desperate to find friends among the stars." "And what happened?" "Something answered." The words hung in the air like smoke. Felt the chill return, stronger than before. Around them, the crowd of humans remained perfectly still, perfectly silent, watching the exchange with expressions that revealed nothing. "What do you mean?" pressed. "What answered?" Did not respond immediately. She turned and looked at the sky, at the pale blue expanse that separated her world from the endless darkness beyond. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "We learned that the universe is not kind, Commander. We learned that some things are better left unspoken. So we stopped speaking. We turned our signals inward. We wrapped ourselves in silence and hoped that whatever heard us the first time would eventually forget we existed." Wanted to ask more questions. She wanted to demand explanations, details, proof. But something in's voice stopped her. Something in the way the humans watched her, with eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. "We will share what we know with your council," continued, turning back to face. "But we ask only one thing in return." "What is that?" "Leave us to our silence. Do not force us to speak again. The galaxy may be loud, Commander, but there are good reasons to stay quiet. Perhaps one day you will understand why." Returned to her ship that night carrying data chips filled with human history, human science, and human warnings. She did not understand everything she had learned. But as her vessel rose through the atmosphere and the blue planet grew small behind her, she could not shake the feeling that humanity knew something the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Something important. Something terrifying. And as she set course for the council, she wondered if anyone would believe her when she told them about the quiet world and the people who chose silence over screaming. She doubted it. But she would try. The council chamber was enormous. It stretched upward for hundreds of meters, carved from living crystal that glowed with soft inner light. Representatives from over 300 species filled the curved seats, their bodies strange and varied, their voices mixing into a constant hum of conversation and debate. This was the heart of galactic civilization, the place where empires made peace and alliances forged futures. Commander stood at the central podium, feeling very small. She had given her report. She had shown the data. She had repeated, word for word, everything the human woman had told her, and now she waited for the council to respond. The first to speak was High Chancellor Bora, the leader of the council and the most powerful being in known space. She was ancient, her skin wrinkled and gray, her eyes sharp despite her age. She had ruled the council for over 2 centuries, and her word was rarely questioned. "You expect us to believe," Bora said slowly, "that this primitive species chose silence because they are afraid of something. Something so terrible that they would rather hide than join the galactic community." "That is what they told me, High Chancellor." Bora made a sound that might have been laughter. "Commander, I have lived for 400 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed wars that consumed entire star systems. And in all that time, I have never encountered anything in the universe that justified hiding in silence." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, felt her face grow warm with frustration. With respect, High Chancellor, the humans seemed certain of what they experienced. Their fear was genuine. Their warnings were sincere. Their warnings were superstition. Another voice cut in. Turned to see Admiral rising from his seat. He was younger than most council members, but his reputation was formidable. He had led the council's military forces through 3 major conflicts and had never lost a battle. He was known for his cold logic and his absolute confidence in the power of the council's fleets. But today something in his expression surprised. He did not look dismissive. He looked thoughtful. "May I speak, High Chancellor?" he asked. Bora waved her hand in permission. Walked slowly toward the podium, his boots clicking against the crystal floor. He stopped beside and looked up at the assembled representatives. "I have read Commander's report carefully," he began, "and I have studied the data she brought back from Earth. The humans are not primitive. Their technology is different from ours, yes, but it is advanced. They have mastered energy production, space travel, artificial intelligence, and biological engineering. In many ways, they are our equals." "Then why do they hide?" someone shouted from the upper seats. "That is precisely my point," replied. "A species this advanced does not hide without reason. A species this capable does not choose silence unless they have learned something we have not." Bora leaned forward in her chair. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "I am suggesting caution. The humans spoke of something that answered their signals long ago. They spoke of a danger that convinced them to go quiet. Perhaps we should investigate before we dismiss their warnings entirely." The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted over each other, some agreeing with, others mocking him. The chaos lasted several minutes before Bora raised her hand for silence. "Admiral," she said, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade, "you are a respected military leader, but you are not a philosopher or a scientist. The humans are clearly a superstitious species, traumatized by some ancient event they no longer understand. Their fear is not evidence of danger. It is evidence of ignorance." His jaw tightened. "And if you are wrong, High Chancellor, what if their fear is wisdom? Then we will deal with whatever comes. The Council has faced every threat the universe has offered. We will not cower in silence like frightened children." A new voice rose from the far side of the chamber. "I agree with the High Chancellor." Recognized the speaker immediately. General, the Supreme Commander of the Empire, the largest and most aggressive civilization in the galaxy. They were warriors, conquerors, collectors of worlds and species. They had joined the Council only because it benefited their expansion, and everyone knew they dreamed of eventual dominance. Was massive, his body covered in natural armor, his eyes burning with ambition. He smiled as he spoke, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "This silent world intrigues me," he said. "A species that hides, that fears, that refuses to participate in galactic affairs. They are clearly weak. They are clearly vulnerable." His smile widened. "They would make an excellent addition to the Empire." "You cannot be serious," said sharply. "I am completely serious. The humans have resources, technology, and a habitable world in a strategic location. If they will not join the Council willingly, then we will bring them into the fold by force. It is the way." The chamber buzzed with mixed reactions. Some representatives looked horrified. Others looked excited at the prospect of watching the expand again. A few simply looked bored, as if the fate of an entire species meant nothing to them. Stepped forward. "General, I strongly advise against this course of action. The humans are not as weak as they appear. Their silence is a choice, not a limitation, and their warnings should not be ignored." Laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Commander, I have conquered over 40 worlds. I have crushed species that claim to be ancient and powerful. I have never failed. These humans, with their small bodies and their quiet ways, will be no different. Admiral agrees with me, pressed. He sees the danger in underestimating Earth. Glanced at with contempt. The Admiral is cautious to a fault. Caution is for the weak. The strong take what they want and leave others to weep. His expression remained calm, but his voice carried ice. General, I have seen empires fall because their leaders confused aggression with strength. I have watched civilizations crumble because they refused to listen to warnings. If you attack Earth without understanding what you face, you may not survive the mistake. Is that a threat, Admiral? It is a prediction. The two leaders stared at each other across the chamber. The tension was thick enough to touch. Everyone waited to see who would break first. It was High Chancellor Bora who spoke. Enough. The Council will not interfere with military operations. General, if you wish to bring the humans into your empire, that is your decision. The Council takes no official position. Felt her heart sink. High Chancellor, please. The humans asked only for one thing. They asked to be left alone. Can we not grant them that simple request? Bora looked at with something that might have been pity. Commander, the galaxy does not grant requests. The galaxy takes what it wants. If the humans wish to be left alone, they should have been strong enough to defend their silence. They might be, said quietly. But no one was listening anymore. General was already leaving the chamber, issuing orders to his officers through his communication device. Within hours, the fleet would begin preparations. Within days, they would launch toward Earth. Within weeks, they would arrive at the silent world and demand surrender. Watched him go with a hollow feeling in her chest. She had tried to warn them. She had tried to make them understand. But the Council was old and arrogant, and they were hungry for conquest. Appeared beside her. You did what you could, Commander. It was not enough. No, he agreed. It was not. But perhaps the humans will surprise them. Perhaps their silence hides more than fear. Thought about her sad smile and her ancient eyes. She thought about the way the humans had watched her without fear, without panic, as if they had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. Perhaps, she said. But deep down, she knew the truth. The galaxy had ignored humanity's silence. The galaxy had dismissed their warnings. And whatever came next, the galaxy would have only itself to blame. The countdown to war had begun. The fleet was massive. 200 warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one carrying thousands of soldiers hungry for conquest. They moved through space like a swarm of predators, their engines burning bright against the darkness. General stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars slide past, dreaming of glory. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet wrapped in silence, Captain received the warning. She was sitting in her office deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon when the alert came through. The walls around her were gray and utilitarian, built for function rather than beauty. This was the heart of humanity's hidden military command, a place that did not officially exist, protected by layers of rock and secrets that had been kept for centuries. Looked at the data on her screen and felt her stomach tighten. 200 ships, heading directly for Earth. Arrival estimated in 18 days. She pressed a button on her desk. Get me the General. Seconds later, a face appeared on her screen. General was old, his hair white and his face lined with years of burden. But his eyes were sharp and his voice was steady. I have seen the report, Captain. They are coming. Yes, sir. What are our orders? Was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, could see the walls of his own command center, covered with maps and charts and images of distant stars. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Every soldier in humanity's hidden fleet had trained for this day, and now it was finally here. We hoped it would never come to this, said softly. We hoped the galaxy would leave us alone. We hoped our silence would be respected. But it was not. No, it was not. He took a deep breath. Very well, Begin the awakening protocol. Alert all fleet commanders. Bring the lunar bases to full readiness, and pray that we still remember how to fight. Felt a chill run through her body. The awakening protocol. She had read about it in classified documents, had trained for it in simulations, but had never believed she would actually see it activated. It was humanity's last resort, their final answer to a universe that refused to let them be. Understood, sir. Awakening protocol initiated. She ended the call and began issuing orders. Deep beneath the moon's surface, things began to move. Hangar doors that had been sealed for generations groaned open, revealing ships that had been waiting in darkness for centuries. These were not like the small shuttles and transport vessels that humans used for everyday travel. These were warships, massive and ancient, built during a time when humanity had been young and foolish, and had screamed into the void without understanding the consequences. Engineers rushed through corridors, bringing systems online that had been dormant for longer than most civilizations had existed. Power cores hummed to life. Weapons systems ran through diagnostic checks. Navigation computers updated their star maps, accounting for the drift of galaxies over thousands of years. Captain walked through the primary hangar, watching the chaos with a mixture of pride and fear. The ship before her was called the Silent Thunder. It was over 3 kilometers long, covered in armor plating that could withstand almost any known weapon. Its main cannon had enough power to crack a small moon, and it was just one of hundreds. Beautiful, is she not? Turned to see Lieutenant approaching. She was young, barely 30 years old, but she was one of the finest pilots in the hidden fleet. Her eyes were bright with excitement and fear. She is, agreed. I never thought I would see her fly. None of us did, but here we are, looked at the massive ship and shook her head slowly. Do you think we can win? Considered the question carefully. The fleet was large and experienced. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had never lost a major battle. On paper, they should have been unstoppable. But they did not know what waited for them. We have advantages they cannot imagine, said. We have been preparing for this moment since before their empire existed. Our technology is old, but it was built during a time when we faced something far worse than the thing that answered, said quietly. Yes, the thing that answered. No one spoke of it directly. It was humanity's greatest secret, their darkest memory, the reason they had chosen silence over speech. Thousands of years ago, when humans had first reached the stars, they had called out to the universe with hope in their hearts, and something had heard them, something old, something hungry, something that had nearly destroyed everything before humanity had managed to drive it back into the darkness. The ships in the hidden fleet were relics of that ancient war. They had been mothballed after the victory, stored beneath the moon and other moons throughout the solar system, maintained by generations of secret keepers who hoped they would never be needed again. But now they were needed. How long until the fleet is ready? Asked. 6 hours for the primary vessels, 12 for the full armada. That should be enough time. They will not arrive for 18 days. Hesitated. Captain, do you think we should warn them? Tell them what they are walking into. Thought about it. Part of her wanted to try. Part of her wanted to send a message to explain that Earth was not weak, that humanity's silence was a kindness, not a vulnerability. Perhaps they would turn back. Perhaps bloodshed could be avoided. But she remembered what had told her once, years ago, when had been just a young officer learning the truth about humanity's history. The galaxy does not listen, had said. They see our silence and think we are prey. They will only understand strength. So when the time comes, we must show them what silence truly means. No, said finally. We will not warn them. They had their chance to listen. They chose to ignore us. Now they will learn. Nodded slowly. Understood, Captain. Over the next several hours, the hidden fleet came to life. Ships rose from their lunar tombs, their engines burning blue and gold against the black sky. They assembled in formation behind the dark side of the moon, invisible to any observer, waiting in the silence they had perfected over. 300 warships, 50 carriers, thousands of fighters, an armada that no one in the galaxy knew existed. Captain took her place on the bridge of the Silent Thunder. Around her, officers moved with quiet efficiency, running final checks, confirming readiness, preparing for the battle that was coming. The main showed the stars, peaceful and eternal, unaware of the violence that was about to erupt. General's voice came through the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is General, the Empire has chosen to attack our world. They believe we are weak. They believe our silence means we cannot fight. They are wrong. Felt the words settle into her bones. For thousands of years we have hidden, we have hoped, we have prayed that the galaxy would leave us in peace. That hope has been betrayed. So now we will remind the universe why we chose silence in the first place. Not because we were afraid, not because we were weak, but because we knew what we were capable of and we did not want to become what we once were. The bridge was silent. Every officer listened with their full attention. Today we awaken. Today we fight. And today the galaxy will learn that some silences are warnings. The channel closed. For a moment no one moved. Then spoke. All stations prepare for departure. We move to intercept in 6 hours. The silent thunder hummed beneath her feet, ancient engines warming to full power. Around her, the hidden fleet stirred like a sleeping giant finally opening its eyes. They were coming, but humanity was ready. General stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conquest, and smiled at the blue planet growing larger on his. Earth, the silent world, the prize that would cement his legacy as the greatest conqueror in history. His fleet had traveled for 18 days through empty space, and in all that time not a single response had come from the humans. No pleas for mercy, no offers of surrender, no desperate attempts to negotiate, just silence stretching across the void like a thick blanket. They truly are cowards, said to his second-in-command, a warrior named. They know we are coming and they do nothing. Nodded, but his expression was troubled. General, our scouts report something strange. There are no defensive satellites around the planet, no orbital stations, no ships of any kind. Because they have no military, they are a peaceful species, wrapped in their foolish silence, waiting to be conquered. Laughed. This will be the easiest victory of my career. Perhaps, but something feels wrong. Waved his hand dismissively. You worry too much, focus on the glory ahead. Within hours this world will belong to the Empire. The fleet continued forward. 200 ships, armed with enough firepower to reduce continents to ash. They had conquered species far more advanced than humans. They had broken civilizations that had thought themselves invincible. This would be no different. Then the sensors screamed. General, a technician shouted. Multiple contacts emerging from behind the planetary moon, hundreds of them. Spun toward his smile vanished. Ships were appearing from behind Earth's moon, rising like ghosts from the shadows. They were huge, far larger than anything in the fleet. Their hulls were dark and ancient, covered in strange symbols that glowed with inner light. They moved in perfect formation, silent and terrible, surrounding the fleet before anyone could react. That is impossible, whispered. They had no fleet. Our intelligence confirmed they had no fleet. General said, his voice shaking, I am counting over 300 warships, plus carriers, plus support vessels. This is not a defensive force. This is an armada. For the first time in his life, General felt fear. A communication signal flashed on the console. Someone was hailing them, hesitated, then opened the channel. A face appeared on the screen, a human face. It belonged to a man with white hair and tired eyes, wearing a simple military uniform. His expression was calm, almost sad. I am General of Earth Defense Command, the man said. You have entered our space with hostile intent. This is your only warning. Turn back now, and you will be allowed to leave unharmed. Continue forward, and you will be destroyed." Stared at the screen. The fear in his chest twisted into anger. How dare this creature threaten him? How dare these silent weaklings pretend they could stand against the Empire? "You are bluffing," snarled. "Your ships are relics, your technology is ancient, you cannot defeat us." His expression did not change. "We hoped you would listen. We hoped you would turn back. But we knew you would not. You are like all the others who came before you, convinced that silence means weakness, that peace means vulnerability." "What others?" demanded. "No one has ever challenged Earth." "Not from this galaxy, but we were not always silent, General. We used to call out to the stars just like you, and something answered, something terrible. We fought a war that lasted generations, against an enemy that made your empire look like children playing with toys. We won, but barely. And we learned a lesson that we carry to this day." Felt a chill run down his spine despite his anger. What lesson? That the universe rewards silence, that some things are better left undisturbed. We chose peace not because we were weak, but because we understood what we were capable of. We hoped we would never have to fight again. Paused. "You have forced our hand." "I do not care about your ancient history," growled. "I care about conquest. Your planet will fall. Your species will serve the Empire. Nothing you say will change that." Sighed. It was a tired sound full of regret. "Very well, we gave you a chance. Remember that when it is over." The channel closed. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The two fleets faced each other in the darkness between worlds, suspended in the moment before violence. Then the human ships fired. Had seen weapons before. He had witnessed planet-killing strikes and city-burning bombs. He had thought he understood destruction. He was wrong. The beams that erupted from the human warships were not normal weapons. They were something older, something stranger, something that seemed to twist the fabric of space itself. They did not strike the ships so much as erase them. One moment, a warship was there. The next, it was simply gone, as if it had never existed. "Fire back," screamed. "All ships fire everything." The fleet responded with every weapon they had. Missiles streaked toward the human vessels. Energy beams lanced through space. Explosions blossomed against dark hulls. And nothing happened. The human ships absorbed the attacks without flinching. Their armor did not crack. Their shields did not flicker. They simply continued forward, firing their terrible weapons, methodically destroying the fleet ship by ship. "General," shouted, "we have lost 40 ships, 50, the fleet is breaking." Could not respond. He watched in horror as his armada, his pride, his legacy, was torn apart in minutes. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds vanished into nothingness. Warriors who had never known defeat screamed and died in the darkness. "Retreat," finally managed to say. "Order a full retreat, all ships fall back." But there was nowhere to run. The human fleet had surrounded them completely. Every escape route was blocked. Every hope of survival was cut off. Captain watched from the bridge of the silent thunder as the battle ended. It had taken 17 minutes. 200 warships, reduced to scattered debris and fatting energy signatures. Not a single human vessel had been seriously damaged. "General," she said quietly into her communicator, "the enemy fleet has been neutralized. Shall we pursue the survivors?" There was a long pause. Then's voice came through, heavy with something that might have been sorrow. "No, let them go. Let them carry the message back to their empire. Let them tell the galaxy what happened here." Nodded slowly. "Understood, sir." She looked at the wreckage of what had once been the proudest fleet in the galaxy. Somewhere out there, General was still alive, fleeing in a damaged shuttle, his empire's dreams of conquest shattered forever. Lieutenant appeared beside her. "Captain, General is preparing a broadcast. He wants it sent to the entire galaxy." "What kind of broadcast?" "A message for everyone." Felt a weight settle on her shoulders. The silence was over. After thousands of years, humanity was speaking again, and she knew deep in her heart that nothing would ever be the same. "Put it through," she said. General's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. His voice reached every species, every world, every being capable of receiving the signal. "This is General of Earth. Today the Empire attacked our world without provocation. Today we defended ourselves. We did not seek this fight. We did not want this war. We only wanted to be left alone." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We were silent because we hoped you would be kind. We were quiet because we remembered what violence costs. But you forced us to speak. You forced us to show you what we are capable of. And now you know." His eyes seemed to look directly at every viewer, every listener, every frightened soul watching from distant stars. "Leave us to our silence. Do not test us again, because next time we will not stop with one fleet. Next time we will finish what we start." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, species that had laughed at Earth's quietness fell silent themselves. And for the first time in centuries, the universe listened. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. 3 weeks had passed since the destruction of the fleet. 3 weeks since General's message had been broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy. 3 weeks since the universe had learned that the silent world was not weak, was not primitive, was not easy prey. Now the representatives sat in their curved seats, and no one spoke. The constant hum of conversation that had filled the chamber was gone, replaced by a heavy, suffocating silence. High Chancellor Bora looked older than she had ever looked before. Her wrinkled face seemed to have aged another century in the past weeks. Her sharp eyes had lost their confidence. She sat on her throne at the center of the chamber, staring at nothing, lost in thoughts she could not escape. Commander stood at the central podium again, but this time no one was dismissing her. No one was laughing. No one was calling her a fool for believing the humans. "I warned you," she said quietly. Her voice echoed in the empty silence. "I told you what the humans said. I told you they had good reasons for their silence, and you ignored me." No one responded. "The Empire is broken," continued. "General survived, but his fleet is gone. His reputation is destroyed. His empire is withdrawing from their conquered worlds because they no longer have the military strength to hold them. All because you refused to listen." Counselor Sara rose slowly from her seat. She was young for a council member, only 200 years old, but today she looked ancient. Tears streamed down her face as she walked toward the podium. "Commander," she said, her voice breaking, "I voted to allow the attack. I did not speak against it. I thought, like everyone else, that the humans were weak and foolish." She fell to her knees before, her body shaking with sobs. "I was wrong. I was so terribly wrong." Looked down at the weeping counselor and felt nothing but exhaustion. "It is not me you should be apologizing to." "I know, but Earth will not answer our messages. We have tried to establish communication dozens of times since the battle. They respond to nothing. They have returned to their silence." Of course they had. Understood now what she had not understood before. The humans did not want contact. They did not want trade or alliance or friendship. They wanted only to be left alone, to live their quiet lives on their quiet world, free from the chaos of galactic politics. The Council had taken that from them. The Council had forced them to reveal themselves, to show their strength, to become part of the universe they had tried so hard to avoid. Admiral walked forward from his seat. His face was calm, but there was no satisfaction in his expression. He had predicted this. He had warned them, but being right brought him no joy. "High Chancellor," he said, addressing Bora directly, "we need to discuss what happens next." Bora did not respond. "High Chancellor," repeated. Finally Bora looked up. Her eyes were empty. "What is there to discuss? We made a mistake, a terrible mistake, and now the entire galaxy knows that Earth is not to be touched." That is true, but the question remains, what do we do about it? The humans have technology we have never seen before, weapons that can erase ships from existence, armor that shrugs off our most powerful attacks. If they decided to expand, to conquer, there would be nothing we could do to stop them. They will not expand, said firmly. That is not who they are. How can you be certain? Thought about the sad woman who had greeted her on that first day on Earth. She thought about the way the humans had watched her leave, calm and patient, waiting for a future they seemed to already understand. Because they already had the power to dominate the galaxy, explained. They have had it for thousands of years, and they chose silence instead. They chose peace. They chose to hide not because they were weak, but because they did not want to become the monsters they had once fought. Nodded slowly, then we leave them alone. Yes, we leave them alone. The chamber remained silent. Around the room, representatives from hundreds of species sat with their heads bowed, processing the weight of what had happened. Empires that had thought themselves powerful realized they were nothing. Civilizations that had mocked Earth's quietness now trembled at the thought of what that quietness hid. High Chancellor Bora finally stood. Her movements were slow and painful, as if every bone in her body ached with regret. Let the record show, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, that the Galactic Council formally recognizes Earth as a protected world. No species, no empire, no individual shall approach their system without explicit invitation. Violation of this decree will be considered an act of war against the Council itself. It was an unprecedented declaration. Never in the history of the Council had a single world been given such protection, but everyone understood why it was necessary. Not to protect Earth from the galaxy, but to protect the galaxy from itself. Furthermore, Bora continued, let the record show that the Council apologizes to humanity for the actions of the Empire and for our failure to prevent them. We do not expect forgiveness. We do not deserve forgiveness. We only hope that in time, humanity will understand that not all of us wish them harm. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Far away, on a small blue planet wrapped in silence, General listened to the Council's broadcast. He sat in his office deep beneath the moon, surrounded by the same gray walls he had known for decades. Beside him stood Captain and Lieutenant, both watching the screen with unreadable expressions. They are apologizing, said quietly. The entire galaxy is apologizing. Yes, agreed, they are. Do you think it is sincere? Considered the question carefully. He thought about all the years of silence, all the generations of humans who had lived and died without ever knowing whether their sacrifice would matter. He thought about the ancient war, the terrible enemy, the price they had paid to survive. He thought about the hope that had kept them going, the dream that someday the universe would learn to value peace over conquest. I think they are afraid, he finally said. I think they saw what we can do and they are terrified. Fear can look like respect. Fear can sound like apology. So what do we do? Asked. Turned off the screen. The chamber fell dark, lit only by the soft glow of distant stars visible through a small window. We do what we have always done, he said. We stay silent. We stay hidden. We hope that one day the fear will become genuine respect, and the respect will become understanding, and the understanding will become peace. And if it does not? Smiled. It was a tired smile, the same kind of smile that had worn when she first greeted Commander so many months ago. Then we will be ready. We have always been ready, but we will never strike first. We will never become the thing that almost destroyed us. We will remain what we are, a quiet world, a peaceful species, waiting in silence for a universe that may never deserve us. And exchanged glances. There was nothing more to say. Outside the window, the stars shone cold and bright, indifferent to the dramas of mortal beings. Somewhere among those stars, the Galactic Council was rebuilding its reputation. Somewhere the Empire was collapsing. Somewhere, Commander was writing reports that would be studied for centuries, trying to explain to future generations why they should never, ever disturb the quiet world called Earth. And on that quiet world, humanity continued as it always had. Children went to school, adults went to work, families gathered for meals and laughter and love. They did not think about the battle that had just been won. They did not celebrate their military might or their ancient technology. They simply lived, quiet and content, grateful for another day of peace. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Silence was not weakness. Silence was mercy. And mercy, once rejected, was very hard to earn back. General looked at the stars one last time, then turned and walked away. There was still work to do, ships to maintain, soldiers to train, a world to protect. But for now, the immediate danger had passed. Earth would remain silent. Earth would remain ready. And the galaxy would lament its arrogance for a very, very long time.